Pilgrim-clad marchers departed the Mayflower Society to march past Plymouth Rock to Burial Hill as part of a century-old tradition.
The Pilgrim Progress is a reenactment of the Pilgrims going to church after that first difficult winter when half their number had died. There were 102 pilgrims that came on the Mayflower, 51 survived. So we have 51 pilgrims representing those 51 survivors of that first winter.
Over 100 years now in the town of Plymouth, we reenact the Pilgrims going to church. And in 1627, there was an actual narration or a eyewitness here in Plymouth that talked about how they went to church with a drummer and lining up three abreast and whatnot. And so we reenact that, kind of like a placeholder to make sure people remember history. I think one of the key things people need to realize is the Pilgrims came here because of their faith. And their faith in God and their desire to propagate the gospel of the kingdom. And they wanted to be a witness, an example of that. So going to church is obviously a major event that in their life, that was one of the major reasons they came here.
We met someone a week or two ago at a hymn sing in downtown Boston that told us of this event and sounded like a great way to spend Thanksgiving.
So this is your first year participating in this?
Very first year. Never heard of this before.
And you decided to bring the whole crew here?
Whole crew, exactly, yeah. All 6 kids and my wife.
Okay, and so, like I said, why did you think this would be a good thing to take part in?
Well, it sounds like the most Thanksgiving thing to do on Thanksgiving Day. So pretty simple.
When we were talking to the person that we met at the hymn sing, she was saying that about half of the survivors that made it through that first winter here in Plymouth were children. And so our family is kind of along the same demographic as what we would have seen with that original march from the survivors. And so it's a really neat way for the kids to get to participate in that history. We listened to an audio drama all the way down here about what it was like for the Pilgrims coming across and establishing their new colony. So it's exciting to get to take part in that.
I thought it might be a good experience to come out to Boston to see what the Pilgrim Parade might be like.
Well, the final Pilgrim's Progress event of the year has wrapped up here in Plymouth on Thanksgiving Day, but it will resume again on Friday nights in August. Another event soon followed on Coles Hill, the National Day of Mourning.
The National Day of Mourning was founded by my grandfather in 1970. He had been asked to give a speech by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to commemorate the 350th anniversary of the arrival of the Pilgrims. He wrote a speech that was far from complimentary. He was not allowed to give this speech, and so he and a group of supporters gathered here on this hill in 1970, and we've been gathering ever since. National Day of Mourning is a powerful day for Indigenous peoples to speak our truths, to talk about what's happening in Indian country, and it's also a day where we push back against the Thanksgiving mythology.
We come here annually. We come here to start the fire, give some tobacco offerings to those who passed and those who are still here, and this is just to honor the folks that were of this land here.
Yeah, and I believe it's for those that have fought the fight. Too. We've been fighting for centuries, and we still continue that fighting. We pass it on to the next generation. And we come out, I think, in 2 words. I think it's an R&R day for me. It's a day to reflect, and it's a day to show respect.
So I need to give you a little news story for those of you who may not have heard it. The town of Plymouth wanted to withhold the stage that we use this year, and otherwise not comply with our 1998 agreement with the town that clearly says we can gather and march without a permit and that Plymouth will provide the stage. Fortunately, this case was very clear cut and we know how to lawyer up. Our lawyers went into court on Tuesday to ensure that the agreement would not be violated and that we would be able to be here today with the stage. And believe me, the stage was delivered an hour after the court decision.
The event also featured a speaker program and recorded remarks from recently released activist Leonard Peltier.
Greetings to my sisters and brothers on the day of mourning. I can happily say, because of your hard work and support over the years, that I'm now sitting in my own personal home, for the nice little home bought by Indian people, not tribes, and it's completely furnished. I got a lot of gifts from Native people, to hang on the walls and some of my paintings, of course. I'm comfortable compared to the cell I was in for the 49 years, 0.2 months. And I'm happy to hear that you're still exposing Thanksgiving. It was probably one of the biggest false propaganda information that the American people and American government has ever distributed among people around the world. They claim it's a day of Thanksgiving and how great of a friend they were to Native people and celebrated with them turkey and other foods. When if you look deeply into the real actual history, they massacred a number of people on the day of mourning, and I know that's why you created the day of mourning.
So I'm out here today to acknowledge the First Nations of this country that we're on, the Wampanoag people. I'd like to acknowledge elders past and present, and to just pay my deep respects. This country always was and always will be First Nations country. I'm from Sydney in Australia, and that's Gadigal country. So I'd like to acknowledge Gadigal elders as well.
This year's event also provides unique perspectives on the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution.
Well, of course, there's not a direct link, but there is ideologically that one of the reasons that pilgrims came, their faith was driving them to have freedom of worship and freedom of religion and their practice of religion here. And so in that case, yeah, there's an ideological link because the history of New England is the idea that these pastors and these preachers continued to preach that. And that had a major effect on the American Revolution.
Our feelings toward the American Revolution are probably similar to those towards Thanksgiving, where when this country was founded, when the colonists rebelled against Britain, Native peoples were very much not part of that revolution in terms of the equality it created for people. You know, we were referred to as merciless Indian savages in the Constitution. So I think that there's also some truth-telling there as well.
It led to tribes being split, even families being split. It led to the theft of millions more acres of our lands. Native peoples are being portrayed right now in documentaries and other settler media as contributors to the American project, but not as people from Native nations that predate their United States and that still hold authority over their lands and citizens. Once again, we are being erased as the settlers turn the first people of this land into their own symbols of American virtue. So I want to remind everybody that those famous freedoms that were promised in 1776 were never intended to apply to us.
Well, as an historian, I can tell you that re-examining the past is nothing new. I mean, each generation does so. And by it, we hope to learn something about the past that we thought we didn't know. But of course, our understanding of our relations with Native America have changed dramatically in the last number of years as we not only integrate the Native community in understanding those events, but also looking at our legacy as a place that was established by people from around the globe, the impact that colonialism had on the settlement of the New World. And the Pilgrims, of course, themselves were refugees, immigrants, fleeing what they felt was religious oppression and doing it at great risk. And I think there's a lesson there. It's an important lesson that from then to now, there are always people seeking freedom, seeking new opportunity, and often doing so at great risk. And so we can look at it that way.
Well, the National Day of Mourning has made it down here to Plymouth Rock, where they're starting to wrap up events with thousands in attendance. But organizers say they will be back again next year for the National Day of Mourning. Reporting from Plymouth, Dan McCready, WATD News.